All right. Has anyone ever told you that your financial plan is no different than your home? All right. So what does that mean? When we think about building a home and we think about building a financial plan, there's a lot of similarities, right? So when we build a home, like structurally, they're all kind of the same, right? We've got a foundation, we've got walls, and we've got a roof. And it's no different with retirement planning. Like structurally, a lot of times they're all the same. We've got a foundation, we've got walls, and we've got roof to our financial plan. And we're going to break that down in today's video. So when it comes to the most important part of your retirement plan, it's the foundation. And here's the thing. I think a lot of people have no foundation to their retirement plan because I think here's what a lot of people have been told. They've been told, save, save, save. Just put the money in the 401k. Let the stock market do its thing. It's just going to get bigger, bigger, and bigger. And you know what? That's not an all bad plan if you're kind of walking up the mountain towards retirement. But once we get towards the top of the mountain, we start coming down the backside of the mountain, we all start thinking about different things. We no longer think about how do we get that bucket big enough? We start thinking about things like, how do I make that bucket last as long as I do? How do I, know if I have enough risk or if I have too much risk? Like, what about taxes, right? What about what happens when my spouse passes away? So on and so forth. And that's where we've got to flip the script and we got to start thinking about coming down the backside of this mountain in retirement, not going up the mountain in retirement. And that's where your financial home really needs to come in place. Just like the home that you live in, the foundation is the most important part, like I already said. We've got to have a foundation that we can build everything up on top of, all right? And here's the thing. There's a lot of different ways to build a foundation, right? But the requirements are it can't fall over and it can't cave in. We just got to hold everything else up, right? Like foundations in Texas are a whole lot different than foundations in Illinois. And so there's all kinds of different tools we can use. We've got to figure out what the best tools are for your financial foundation, your retirement plan foundation. So when I think about, hey, I've got this bucket of money, all right, and I want to get those dollars allocated, big fancy word for like what kind of a mix of investments should I have in my retirement plan or when I get to retirement and when I'm coming down the backside of that mountain. So the foundation, here's my requirements for the foundation. Need to have dollars that are principal protected. Here's what that means. You can't lose money. And we need to be able to get reasonable rates of return. What does that mean? Well, it can mean something different for everybody, right? It can be 0 to 2% for some people. Other people, they might think it needs to be 10%. I don't know. When I think reasonable rates of return, in my mind, I'm thinking like 3 to 6%. All right. If I have dollars that are principal protected and I can't lose money and I can get a reasonable rate of return, in my mind, that's 3 to 6%. All kinds of different tools that we can use in the foundation of our financial plan, of our investment mix, right? And you know what? I don't really care what tools we use. We've got to figure out what tools are best in your situation. It's no different than, hey, the basement of our home here in Illinois is going to have a lot of different things in it than maybe the one over in Texas or in Florida, right? And so doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean it's right. It just means it's right for you. So what kind of tools can we use there? I'm going to do a separate video on tools that we can use in the foundation of your financial home. But once we get the foundation built, now we got to put walls up on top of that foundation, right? And in my mind, right, in our investment mix, like the walls of our home, like they can't fall over, they can't cave in, but we'll probably have a hailstorm come along at some point in time and we'll have to put new siding on, right? I'm sure we're probably going to have to change the paint color inside at some point in time. So like we need to have a decent plan on what our investment mix is in those walls of our home. But like that's kind of our insulation from the big drops in the market, right? Like, if we go back to 2008 or COVID or 2025 with the tariff stuff, or we go clear back to 2001 or the World Trade Towers, things like that. We've got to have insulation. So the walls of our home are kind of insulating us from those big drops in the market. Again, all kinds of different tools that we can use for the walls of our home. It's just like I said, you build a house that you're going to live in, like people are going to hang a lot of different things on the walls, right? But that doesn't mean they're right or wrong. It just means there's a lot of different ways to do it. But we all got walls in our home and we all decorate those walls. In our investment mix, we all need to have walls, but we can probably decorate them a little bit differently. All right. So once we get the walls in place, now we can start putting a roof on our home. Okay. What does the roof do for us? It protects us from, the storms, right? One of the storms could be inflation. So like the roof of our home, that's typically where I think about our long-term investments. Okay. So those are dollars that we're not going to need for a really long time. Those are dollars that can protect us against inflation, right? And so those are going to be our higher risk dollars. We're really going to try to hit some home runs there and get some growth. Okay. But again, just like a roof in the Midwest, maybe we've got shingles, right? And, a roof in different parts of the country can be made up of different things. I don't know what those different things are though, because I don't do roofs. Stucco, I don't know. I think that's siding. The point here is not all of our roofs are going to be the same, but that roof is to help protect our portfolio from inflation. Okay. So when we think about our investment mix, when we're walking into retirement, we've got to be a lot more strategic. And when we think about it here at 210 Financial, we think about it on a risk scale from 1 to 99. We couple that up with our financial home analogy. The foundation is principal protected. That's like a risk score 1. The walls, that's kind of our insulation from the big drops in the market. If we think about that on a risk score, that's like a 30, 40, 50. Okay. And then the roof of our home, that's like our long-term money. That's going to have a risk score of 60, 70, 80. All right. And so now we've got a little bit of strategy behind what we're trying to do. We've got strategy behind, hey, where are we pulling money to live on? I think most times we're going to pull money out of that foundation to live on. Principal protected, reasonable rates of return. What you don't want to be is a forced seller in a down market. Okay. So what does that mean? That means the market goes down the same time you're taking money out each month or year, however you want to do it, to live on. That can get ugly in a hurry. And so that's the point of the foundation, is to protect us from those big drops. We're going to keep pulling money from the foundation of our home every month. And if the market falls apart on us, if our roof starts leaking a little because the market's getting wonky, our foundation's there, and we get to keep pulling money out of there and not have to worry about being a forced seller in a down market. One of the things that we do all the time, happy to do it for you if you don't understand how much risk you have, if you don't understand the investment mix that you have right now walking into retirement, is run a stress test on your portfolio. So what does that mean? And how do we do that? So a stress test is take the holdings off your statements and we're going to score them out on that scale from 1 to 99, right? 1's like cash in the bank. 99 is as risky as you can get. We're going to score out your investment holdings there, and we're going to see how much risk do you have, right? But most importantly, what we're going to do is we're going to stop talking percentages. I think our industry has done a really good job of talking about percentages, and no one knows what that means, right? It's hey, let's take a 10%. If we can get 10% to the upside or 10% to the downside, that sounds good. Until you got $1 million or you got $2 million, and 10% is literally 6 figures, right? People start to make weird decisions when that downside loss starts hitting 6 figures, right? Even though it's just a 10%, if you got $1 million, it's just a 10% loss, it's actually $100,000. And so one of the things that we like to do for people is stress test their portfolio and take away the percentage and put in a dollar figure, right? If 2008, if COVID, if the tariff thing in 2025 happens again, how much of your account's going to be down? And are you going to be okay with that kind of mentally or emotionally? Emotionally is probably the biggest piece of the puzzle here, because tactically we can kind of look at your plan, we can kind of build your house and structure it like I talked about. And we can say, hey, we're okay risk-wise and all of that. But like mentally or emotionally, if you can't take the amount of risk that we've kind of prescribed, you're going to really struggle when the hard times come, when those storms start coming. And so understand how much risk you have. Take it away. Don't think about it in a percentage. Think about it in a dollar figure. And that's really going to help you understand how much risk you have. So if you want to stress test your portfolio, grab some time on our calendar and we'll walk you through the process for doing that. Once we've got a stress test though, then we can decide, are we okay with how much risk we have, right? Do we have a structure to our investments, right? What I find is most people don't have a structure at all. They've got a 401k or an IRA. We stress test it. They have more risk than what they think they do. And there's no structure built out in any way, shape, or form. And so in other words, what I'm trying to say is they don't have their financial home, their mix of investments built out in that foundation, walls, and roof. And so we've got to figure out how to do that. And honestly, the reason why there's really no structure behind it is because you've been taught to just put money in your 401k and the market's going to take care of you. And that's probably right up to a point. And then when we start, up to the top of the mountain in retirement, but when we start coming down the backside of the mountain, that's where things really start to change. And we've got to implement some structure. We've got to build your financial home and structure it a lot like the house that you live in, right? Your tile and your flooring and your fixtures, they may not look exactly like your neighbors, but like there's a structure there that we're going to use. And it makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. And we just got to tweak it and we got to make it your style. So if there's no structure in place, grab some time on our calendar and let's start talking through how we can start putting structure into place, how we can stress test your portfolio, and how we can walk you to and through retirement.